Good, good late night. It's a late night. But we're gonna do this anyway because I have nothing else better to do. This is the best thing to do. I don't know. Shut up, Dylan. Shut up. We're just gonna start.
Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Simulator Public Version 7.0. We did it. After months of integrating lived experience through interviews and Neuralink cyberpunk weirdness, and much unethical unpaid voyeurism, we now have a simulator geared to help survivors make seize of the life they'd just let go of. Some moments of recognition for those currently in an abusive situation, and we hope we've included...
Okay, sorry. Egregious. Sense of the life they just left. Recognition. Line editing. Isn't that fun? Isn't that exciting? There we go. And we've included some bots. Okay, there we go. Take two.
Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Simulator Public Version 7.0. We did it. After months of integrating lived experience through interviews and Neuralink cyberpunk weirdness, and much unethical unpaid voyeurism, we now have a simulator geared to help survivors make sense of the life they just left, recognition for those currently in an abusive situation, and we've included some bots that will help you process the weeks and months and years of healing, devaluation of healing, downplaying of abuse from loved ones, and recapitulations of harm in the world in ways impossible to step between. Remember, healing is an art, celebrated only once the artists are dead. Even during that healing labor, other fucked artist folks would tear them to little dabs in about 10 extractions, leaving scrawled by the light road. What value shall mere fragile, imperfect breath bear, lest the scurry away on claws blackly grim triumphant, knowing sweet rapture they well understand that few moments that truly ours may feel after, but still sweet theirs. We must lose our suffering, while gaining so enough of you tell myself, whispered, dear fool, know this worthiness he loves none better, been dying forever, one in single clove, oust us of whole realm, leave bruises worse, even if apish to make worthy of joy a rare species longs.
Let's rein that in a bit. It's a wild setting.
And or two as I need not so saying it, yes, and always more and less than what I want to be, not ever let not want what I am. Let me start by saying thank you. We started working on the simulator 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And in the past year, with your support, we were able to add a number of features, including a lot of customization for users, a bot framework, a new theme, and more. In particular, we're grateful for the generous donations from a number of anonymous patrons. Without their contributions, the project wouldn't exist. So first off, thank you. Your generosity is appreciated more than you can possibly imagine. If you'd like to see how that money was spent, check out our transparency report or read on for some updates. The next thing you should know is that the simulator is currently closed source. However, its code base has been made open source under a MIT license. That means anyone will soon be able to build an instance of it locally or host it themselves using cloud services such as Azure. This will allow people in abusive situations to play it without worrying about privacy. It'll also make it easier for developers and researchers to experiment with the simulator's code base. In fact, one developer built an app called Slime Simulator, based entirely on what he learned playing this game, and he shared his experience at DEF CON CISI earlier this month.
Czechoslovakia?
Now, I want to talk about something I think is important. The purpose of the simulator isn't to shame abusers, but rather to help survivors heal. And I'm not just talking about physical healing here. I mean emotional healing. I believe abusers often don't realize they're hurting us in ways big and small because their behavior comes so naturally. But if we're constantly being gaslighted by them over everything, we won't have the mental bandwidth to recognize their patterns of abuse when we encounter them elsewhere in life. We might mistake a lover who pushes us away every time we try to connect with her for a genuinely compassionate person. For example, so I wanted to provide a safe space for people to figure out what the fuck is going on inside these relationships before diving headfirst into real-life drama. As for how it works, there are no set rules except that you must treat your partner with respect while also keeping in mind that she doesn't deserve mistreatment any more than you do. To start, you choose whether or not you've experienced verbal, physical, and / or sexual abuse from someone you love. Once there, you'll move through 4 different rooms which simulate an average day, beginning at home where you might argue over food choices, then go to work and interact with your coworkers including a manager, spend some time together outside of work at an event like a party or a concert, then end at the relationship's personal level. Every room will put you face to face with the same 2 questions. 1, did you disrespect your significant other? And 2, did they take advantage of the situation by controlling, shaming, accusing, blaming, denying, or otherwise abusing you as an individual? You can respond honestly, but be mindful of consequences, as those responses could result in something like losing your job. You're not meant to win. Your goal is simply to survive. If you play it right, it should be difficult, but not impossible to get by without becoming completely broken down and destroyed. But it should also become clear how the abuse plays a part in everything else that happens between you and the person in question. For example, if she insults you at home, tries to control you at work, berates you for getting too close with a friend, and refuses to admit she did anything wrong when confronted about her behavior, her pattern becomes clearer. So does yours. Some people may assume this game was made because I want sympathy from my audience. And sure, I would love nothing more than people to feel bad for me, but only because I don't have enough self-love. I mean, I am sad I had to make this game because I know all the time and money I've spent on it will never fix what's broken inside of me. That said, maybe you can use the experience to heal yourself a little bit, or just see how shitty you really are and accept the fact that you deserve better treatment. In either case, the point is not pity or shame, but rather awareness. Not even relationships that are good are free from abuse. If they were, there'd be no need to simulate such terrible situations. And instead we're trying to expose one form of abuse at a time through the Octavia. But a simulator, it might seem heavy-handed at first, but after playing through several rooms, hopefully the whole thing begins to hit home. The player controls 2 characters at once through multiple levels, starting out in the protagonist's apartment before moving into his workspace and eventually meeting up with a partner. While you can go back and forth between each room, The flow is dictated by your own choices in earlier sections of the game. Every encounter between the partners is an opportunity to argue over your past actions and present choices as well as your future relationship. When it comes down to it, though, every interaction has a single goal: survival. You can argue over who gets to sit next to you on public transport, but if that doesn't end in death, it means you didn't lose too much. A loss here could result in losing something important later on, so it may not always be worth risking things for revenge. As for other arguments, if you break something while she's angry about not being able to find her keys, she'll be less likely to help look for them because she feels like she's already let you down once and will do everything possible to keep her distance. This game's main message is to make players aware that abusive relationships don't just happen overnight. They're a pattern of behavior built over time. Once the game is completed, I hope players walk away feeling empowered that they don't have to put up with abuse forever. They just need to stop tolerating it until they have enough resources or support around them to get out safely. There are many ways to leave an abuser. One thing we should all try to avoid is leaving our problems behind us when we escape from an abusive situation. People who haven't experienced such violence might see their partner as just controlling and manipulative instead of what they actually are: a psychopath whose desire for control leads him to threaten his partner's life in order to get his way. If you think you've found someone else's abusive, it may be better to confront the person in question rather than running away without learning more about the problem. This won't work in every case, especially with people who lack the emotional intelligence to realize the impact their actions can have on others. But some people aren't so bad once you learn how to talk with them. The game was designed with inspiration taken from games like Dishonored and Hitman. It uses stealth gameplay mechanics combined with a choice-based system where your character is presented with 3 choices at any given moment, each leading to a different outcome that influences your relationship as well as your overall goal in that section of the game. For example, a simple argument could lead your partner to give in to your demands in exchange for sex, in which case the rest of the day would be spent playing out scenes of consensual intercourse, or you could choose to tell her she's not worth fighting over by turning down her offer, thus provoking her into lashing out even harder. There's no right answer. You'll have to weigh everything against everything else and come up with something unique to you and your partner. I wanted this game to focus less on telling my own story, the theme I'd initially intended, and instead make players consider what they'd do if they were put in similar situations. In doing so, I hope players would take away more than just a personal anecdote from their playthroughs. They'd gain a sense of empathy toward victims of abuse, as well as the tools necessary for navigating a broken romantic relationship safely. A few days before the release of the first demo, a friend asked me if I thought there was an audience for such a difficult topic as emotional abuse, especially since the industry seems to be moving further and further towards easy to digest experiences such as the Final Fantasy series and Uncharted. At the time, I felt unsure of myself. My primary concern wasn't whether people might be turned off by my project because it tackled such sensitive material. Rather, I wondered how many people might find it triggering. I hadn't included much about sexual assault specifically in the game due to its difficulty in writing about it without seeming insensitive or pandering, but in my opinion, one's inability to escape physical or psychological violence can easily manifest itself through their romantic relationships in various forms, so I did include a handful of scenes depicting domestic abuse. However, that didn't change the fact that players would need a lot of support to go through the entire experience at home. After a bit of discussion with friends who knew me well enough, we came up with the idea of adding some optional notes to the Steam store page and putting them on social media under the tag #NotesEmotionalAbuse, which was met with quite a bit of success. As for what to say, well, that was easier said than done. I wanted to convey two things in my message. Firstly, I wanted to show other victims of abuse that they weren't alone. It's hard to believe, given our hyper-connected society. Yet, I know so many women and men who feel so isolated. Even now, years after I decided not to let fear win out, I still sometimes wonder if anyone will ever get me. In spite of all the good people I've come across over the years, I also occasionally encounter people who try to convince me to stay away from their circle for reasons I don't always understand. This is a reality I'm trying to change. Second, I want to encourage others to speak out. We're told to brush off abuse as no big deal, especially by those closest to us, and there are many people who do just that, despite being surrounded by countless stories and examples proving otherwise. By speaking about it more openly and helping break the taboos surrounding it, we can hopefully begin to chip away at the culture of silence that surrounds it, one step at a time. To help bring awareness to the project, the team and I agreed on a set of goals. Help spread the word to raise public awareness of emotional abuse. Encourage survivors to tell their own stories through a simple but powerful interactive experience. Players should be able to engage with the material without needing any prior knowledge. Encourage dialogue on the topic of emotional abuse. One of the biggest challenges I faced was coming up with a solution that's allowed me to show players what was going on while still protecting my identity and that of my partner, whom I asked not to appear at all during the development process. For this reason, I kept most scenes under 2 minutes long and also included notes like the man in white or the woman with the red hair, so no one would have been confused by a certain lack of detail. However, after more than 40 years spent developing characters, I know better than anyone else how difficult it can be to create believable yet distinct people who inhabit an imaginary place each.
Oops, sorry. I was supposed to I keep trying to make a continuous breath, but I forget sometimes. Loading, loading, loading.
With their own unique way of speaking and acting. As for why some women might prefer to be represented through silence rather than words, it's something we'll probably never understand entirely, but I do hope that if you do encounter someone trying to convince you to stay away from their circle because they've experienced abuse themselves, that perhaps the information in these pages will give you enough perspective to realize that you're doing them no favors by staying silent yourself. I believe everyone deserves love and kindness. The first time my mother tried to murder me, she wasn't holding a knife. She held a kitchen spatula. My father took her side. He claimed he had raised us to hate him, and that meant we couldn't trust either of them anymore. So our only option was to live somewhere far away and wait for them to get sick of looking for us before contacting authorities about what they'd done. Of course, there was a very good chance that in reality my mom simply hated me for being a reminder that she used to fuck around behind Dad's back. While my dad felt betrayed by the fact that I seemed to want nothing to do with the whole affair, or that I might have enjoyed hearing about the drama when I visited home, as opposed to once every couple of years like I did. Regardless, the next year, at age 10, I ran off into the woods. That night, lying beside a stream, I looked up at the stars and vowed not to cry. Instead, I told myself I would become stronger and faster than anyone in the world, so much so that no one would ever be able to touch me again. In the decades since then, I've made quite an effort to achieve this goal, and it's served me well until now. My sister found out where I was living and came to see me with a suitcase full of cash, asking if I needed anything. Before moving on, this was unexpected because, although I love my family except Mom, I never really expected any of them to come back after we left home. It hadn't taken long for them to realize how wrong they'd been. Neither my father nor my siblings could stop hating themselves just by being near me, even though that was the whole point. Meanwhile, as for me, having grown accustomed to being alone, the mere presence of other people began making me uncomfortable. I knew it would take a lot more work and time before I felt comfortable enough around people that they wouldn't make me feel so anxious all the time. But I didn't expect to find myself here, at least not in such a short amount of time. For many years now, I haven't had a single person in my life who truly cares about what happens to me. My closest friends have moved away. My mother is dead. My brother won't talk to me over some dumb misunderstanding from 25 years ago. And my only real friend these days has only agreed to stay with me while her own apartment is under construction. To say nothing of the fact that my car died on the way back to the city last night, and so I'm stranded at a hotel without money or a phone. But at least I still have this place where I can sleep safely at night. Which reminds me of home. This room is dark brown wood, and it's as big as our entire house back then. Except instead of walls lined with photographs of family members, it's got a bare metal bed frame standing in the center like an island in a sea of soft blankets and pillows. A window lets in natural light in through slits cut into thick sheets of black plastic hung across it like drapes. The curtains are pulled tight closed against the darkness outside. If you look carefully, you might be able to see your own reflection in them. If there was anyone to see it. This isn't because I don't want to see my reflection. It's because I don't know what I look like anymore, since I've lost so much weight over the past few months. It took me 2 hours just to get my clothes off today and onto my body. Most of my skin is red and bruised looking, and that's even after applying aloe and calamine lotion twice a day for a week. Now, the one good thing about losing all that weight is that even after washing myself in a hot shower for 10 minutes straight, no more bump showed up on my flesh. I spent more time trying to remove all the tiny specks of dried blood than anything else. That shit stains. And I mean really stinks too. Anyway, this bed is also a nice reminder of home. After leaving, I had to sell almost everything. Mom's jewelry collection, her piano, her artworks. The only things I kept were those that I thought could fetch me some cash, or which could fit into my suitcase easily. And of course the house itself, which, by then, had become such a mess that I didn't think I'd ever get it clean enough that strangers wouldn't notice the signs of the disrepair everywhere they looked. Still, the memories of being there with her are so powerful sometimes, and so raw and fresh, it makes sense why people cling so tightly to their homes, as though these places can protect them from forgetting who they are, who they loved, who left them behind. But it doesn't work like that, does it? Not when you've got nowhere to run. Not when your family has abandoned you. You'll forget them anyway. Eventually, all you have to do is let yourself, because nothing in the world hurts so much worse than knowing you will never see someone again. Nothing in the world is more painful than having to stare at the face of the person you love every day and realize how little of it remains, and that soon all you'll be able to see are his bones, and even those will disappear one day without warning. I hate remembering that night. I try so hard to keep that part of me locked away where no one can reach it anymore. But sometimes I still wake up screaming and clawing my skin until I draw blood on my arms, crying out for him. For my brother, whose hands dug themselves into my flesh like he wanted to take up residence inside me instead. He would kill himself for me if he could. If he knew what happened, he'd use a gun or poison or slit his wrists open with a razor blade right here and now, just to put an end to this living hell we call existence. It's funny, really, because despite the pain of losing a loved one, the wound only feels healed once they're gone from this life. But I guess that's the way it works, isn't it? Forgetting the dead so that they won't hurt us any longer. This bed is nice. When I look down at it, I can't help but wonder, did Mom ever lay in it when she was young? What did you ever cook for breakfast? Who is there to make sure the lights stay off while you sleep? What secrets are you keeping under your sheets? Are you too tired to wash them before you climb between them? Did you remember your toothbrush on your first trip home? Was anyone waiting for you when you got back after all these years? When did you become so afraid of being seen through again? You stopped making eye contact altogether, hiding behind your hair and sighs and grins and apologies, and all of it meant nothing. When will someone knock and say, "Come outside, it's time to play again"? What will happen next year? How long will it be before the good days start getting fewer and farther apart until there are none left? Oh, the pain is more than I thought it would be. The pain is greater than anything I could have imagined. The pain is something else entirely now that I know what pain is. A dream is not what I think about when I'm sleeping. It's what I think when I'm awake. Fitch and Hat Hand 1926 present. I am sitting in a chair with my feet propped up on an ottoman in front of an unlit fireplace, reading a book about the history of cartoons on a tablet while sipping hot tea on a rainy Sunday morning.
One more. One or two more. One or two more generations.
There are 4 cats curled around me or stretched out on the floor. A black one, 3 gray ones, and a white one. The
Is that
sound
5?
of rain falling against the windows makes it impossible for anyone to sneak up on me. I can't be surprised because I've been expecting them to come since they left me here, alone and locked inside this house in the woods for over 20 years.
So the cats
They
come
call
from.
themselves the Raft because everyone gets assigned to them based on their last name and how many letters there are in it. They have all kinds of nicknames, but no one uses them in person, though sometimes someone might mention someone else using it behind that back. Mostly they're called by their last name followed by their first initial. So if someone wants you to do something like get you another beer, he'll say, "Hey, Ralphie, could you bring me another Budweiser?" That's what I'm known as. Ralphie. My middle name is Rold, and I'm named after my father. I never liked being given that nickname. Not that I had any choice. I didn't want to be a part of the Raft. I
Oh.
was the youngest boy in
Oh, I
the
could've stopped there.
family. Everyone said I should have played football in high school instead of writing poetry, which is a bit of a long shot for the gridiron anyway, considering the number of poems written about sports by former athletes. Bob Feller, Bo Jackson, Bill Russell, Ozzie Smith, all men who went on to play professional baseball, basketball, or football. It doesn't matter what sport you pick. It only matters that you go pro, not college. At least according to most poets. I know people will read these lines and think, well, at least it paid off.
One more. Just one more. Tell me more about poets that become athletes. Oh, good.
Even if I didn't become rich and famous and live out my dreams playing pro ball. But that's just not me. I wanted nothing more than to be a writer and make music and paint pictures. And yet here I am still living with the same folks in the same town where we grew up with the same furniture, watching television shows from 30 years ago and listening to old records and going fishing every Saturday night with the rest of the guys on the raft for 20 years now without once leaving our little bubble of friends. We haven't talked about it for decades. Our own life outside of this. But then again, why would we?
So that means everything was in perfection 1992? So you're watching Seinfeld all the time, and all the TGI Friday stuff, and bad dub of Sailor Moon. Anyway, You flesh this out later, if that's the scenario you want for you. There's so many other simulations available. You can have interpersonal abuse, you can have institutional abuse, you can have historical, cultural, yes, all sorts of. Nothing is not available under the sun. Okay. Good night. Happy domestic abuse. Have a. It's that month. Actually, it's 200 other months, but I'm not going to go into that right